Hey, welcome back. Curves. Sending me curves to review. I think it might be helpful to let you guys know, like, I think what's important information to include for me, just so I have context. That way I'm not just looking at a curve that has no context, right? So curves with context. Yes, the curve is good. I think the information that you can send me to is like the origin of coffee, maybe like the process, whether it's a dense green or not. So indicators of density typically are elevation. So we like to think of African coffees like 2,000 meters above sea level to be like a more dense coffee than, say, a Brazilian coffee that's say naturally processed and grown at 1,000 meters above sea level or something like that. Okay, so that's pretty important information in terms of way I interpreted curves and how, like, other important information: processing, washed, natural, things like honey or double washed. I'm going to put them in either like a a wash category or a natural category. So how easily does this coffee take on heat? Maybe you have a coffee that's not roasting the way it used to roast a couple months ago. I might ask you something like, or something that you might want to look at is the harvest date and how old the coffee is. We did that video on how old is old. Well, I had a coffee here that's been kind of sitting around, harvested like 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago or a year ago? Something like that. It wasn't terribly long. It wasn't like over 5 years or something, but maybe 2 to 3 years is not quote unquote old, to where we can taste old defect in the coffee. Some other information that would be helpful is your charge temp. Unless, because like mine, if I were to send you my curve, the charge temp is not off. So just double checking that the charge temp is correct if you're giving me a curve. There's not like a 10-degree deviation, or, because I didn't know that for like the longest time, that my RoastPath was documenting a different charge temp than what I was actually charging. So I charge from the PID, from the machine, that little console that you see on the physical machine itself, which is basically the environmental temperature. And then I will then start to look at bean temperature on the graph when I'm like actually roasting. Subjective goals. It's nice to, if you guys send me graphs to look at, unless you're just looking for a pat on the back, which that's not a habit I would encourage. What are your goals with this roast? Was it supposed to be light, medium, dark? Have you cupped it? What did it taste like? These are all things that you should be asking yourself, and I think it's helpful to ask somebody like me or somebody outside your circle, so that it could spark more internal dialogue for yourself to get to where you want to go. Color. Is it the color that you're looking for? Right, color's kind of a big deal. I'm now always kind of coming back to a lot of the lessons that I'm learning. I'm like cyclically learning them again, and then tacking on just a little bit more experience, knowledge, and wisdom as I learn those lessons again. Even the basic things like charge temp, right? Charge temp. How do we approach charge temp as a newbie versus as an intermediate versus as a quote unquote master? I'm not a master. So it's really important for me to also iterate that I am also learning, and that if you're trying to treat me as the coach's coach, that's just not realistic. Okay, so I'm really only seemingly steps ahead of you because I make content about it, and I share and I document what I'm actually going through, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm the coach's coach, okay? Okay, so I want to encourage you to just also ask these questions and realize that it's coming from a person who is not an expert, but just an observer, a documenter, and a roaster, and an operator just like you. And it's good for me to remember that as well, because I make content. I am very, very aware that being on camera tends to create a sort of ego in oneself. So we want to check that all the time, every time. We want to check that human habit to be more egotistical and narcissistic than not. All right? So, and that's what coffee does. We're in the perfect place to do that, to check our ego, because coffee is its own thing and it has so many lessons to teach. Meanwhile, since I'm on a lessen my caffeine intake temporary thing going on right now, we're doing a lot of decaf right now. So I've got ground decaf just ready to go to encourage me and remind me that decaf is good, even though I have all this really great caffeinated coffee around me. Like, I have great alternatives for, you know, for the purpose of lessening my caffeine intake for the time being. And I've even got these really nifty dosers, so nice to have at the espresso machine. But let's just brew something here. We got a little time to kill before I got to take off. So let's brew some espresso. Now what's nice about these is, like, you know, you've already dosed it. Okay. How differently does decaf brew in the espresso machine? Now, decaf in general is a much more degraded piece of food material. It's been degraded. It's been sort of like, we've taken things out of it to make it decaffeinated, right? So you'll notice that when you roast it, you've got to be very gentle. You've kind of got to approach things a little bit more longer. You got to stretch things out and sort of develop those sugars. And so the decaf that I'm using is from Colombia. It's that EA sugarcane process, ethyl acetate. They use this chemical to sort of strip away or attract the caffeine molecules, if I am remembering that correctly. And then they wash that away so that there's no residual chemicals that you're actually ingesting. Before, if I remember, they actually used chemicals to make decaffeinated coffee. There was a big concern about whether or not decaf was healthy for you. If you talk to any boomer, like your parents, you know, like I'm 37, if you talk to your parents, they'll be like, decaf, ugh, that's got some weird chemicals in it. It's not like that anymore. They have totally safer ways of making decaffeinated coffee. Just ask the right questions. You know, hey, what kind of process is this? You got mountain water, you got Swiss water, and you've got EA sugarcane processed decaf. And I'm reading this, but I'm not sure if it's all true and everything. 97% caffeine is removed from the EA process, sugarcane processed decaf, and then like 99% is removed from the mountain water and the Swiss waters. And those numbers can kind of change. There's some variance there. It's not all the same. You've really got to look at where the green is coming from. But in my case, this one, I think Hesea says 99% caffeine free. Very, very, very minuscule amounts of caffeine in there. And so if you wanted to watch your caffeine intake, that could be a great option for you. You'd have to drink, like, I don't know, what did they say the number was? I want to say 60. It's like 60 cups of decaffeinated coffee to like equal 1 cup of caffeinated coffee. So, you know, if you just got one, just for the taste, for the great flavor, chocolate flavors, you know, dark chocolate, milk chocolate, that kind of thing, coffee in your tummy, happy camper. All right, let's brew this guy. All right. We'll give this a taste. What's really nice about taking some light, medium roast, like the way I roast, right, is kind of hot and fast. With a hot and fast roaster like myself, what you're gonna get is like definitely more acidity, more zing in the cup, because that's what I like, okay? That's my preference. And I've done that with my decaf, even though I call this a medium. It's really more like a light medium. Probably if you ask like commercial roasteries and such, I know that their finishing temps and colors are a lot darker than what I produce. Let's give this a wash. But you know, that's the beauty of it. Like when I get disappointed when I go out and I buy coffee from like a bigger brand name coffee roaster, because I know that they're trying to please more people and make more sales, and that's totally fine. That's totally understandable, and I respect that. But the beauty of like say a roaster like me is I really get to be selfish about how I roast coffee, and I'm like, dude, I make it like this. And for those who are down for more zing in the cup, which is not a lot, which is good also too, I don't want to be overwhelmed, but like I can make it the way I like it, hot and fast, zing in the cup, even with my quote-unquote medium, which is really, I guess, by industry standards, a more light medium roast, because my finishing temps and colors are lighter than I'd say what most people are making money on and what most people are profiting on, which I totally get that, okay? But for those of you who are down for the more zing, for the little bit more craft approach, for a little bit more inconsistent approach, let's be honest, I'm not a consistent roaster yet. That's definitely a goal, but it's not in the cards right now, as I'm putting in the work and the time to become more consistent, you know. Yeah, this is excellent. Yeah, so this medium, pull through the espresso, it's concentrated, right? So any of those sort of like apricot notes that were sort of like muddled and sweet and filled with like more brown sugar, if you just brewed it, right? If you just did like this kind of thing, they're accentuated more here under pressure, and that's when you can get that zing. And pleasing all around. Like, I didn't even steer this. I think you should steer your espresso, just sort of like make everything mold together. But if you like to taste maybe like the layers of flavor, I think that's totally cool too, for an experiment, right, for learning. That's good. I mean, decaf, right? And espresso, honestly, it tastes normal. And that's the beauty of today's decaf. Today's decaf, I really want to like champion it, because there's nothing wrong with cutting back on the caffeine, but not sacrificing on the flavor. And if you run it through a good espresso machine, you pull a good shot, you do all the things, right? Espresso is a whole other beast. But if you can pull it off, I've already dosed these out. These are all 18 grams in particular for me here, if you want to know. My grind dial here is at 4. I do have to grind finer with a decaf coffee on this machine than say normal coffee, normal caffeinated coffee. There's just more material, I think, for it to kind of run through. Whereas there's less material, right, on the coffee because it is decaffeinated. I need to grind a little bit tighter. It's very good. Nice. So, just wash. That's it. I just just wanted to say a couple of things before I take off today, killing time a little bit. And yeah, if you guys want to send me curves, give me context. Alright, that's it for today. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.